Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for February 19th, the day of the explorer. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the day of the explorer. Well, we have us an image of, what could it be? Well, this one's a little interesting here. It seems to be what you call, I don't know, like a raccoon and a pig who are kind of exploring some kind of elaborate plumbing there. That's right. Does that speak to the day of the explorer? I would say it kind of does. Oftentimes these images don't necessarily line up with the title, though we can kind of make some kind of a connection. I don't know. I'd say today we can. Does that necessarily have any bearing on the read? Sometimes it does, but oftentimes not. So I would say what's more important here, aside from the visual representational image, is the fact that it's February 19th, and so it's somebody's birthday. So what's important around here, if it's February 19th and it's your birthday, well, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I just want to say hope you had a happy birthday. That's right. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly or are here to celebrate the February 19th birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I start off with the birthday redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 5 and a 4 for a 9. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I've heard it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will often put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of the times as we're getting through this life, going about our errands or just the commute to work, say, we often got the blinders on to kind of what's going on around us. Not to say we don't see such things that are coming our way, but we might not lend much credence to them. So this is just a little bit of an experiment to help you start maybe recognizing the things that the universe is putting in your path. Getting those blinders off, if you like. But how do we do this? Well, we need a sign that we can't help but notice. Hopefully. That's right. Your daily numbers. Something mutually agreed upon between us and the universe. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice if this is something you want to try out. And how do you try it out? Well, you pick out a place near and dear to your heart, or maybe some place you haven't explored before. I always often like to pick the town square or someplace downtown, right? And so you get out there with your dice and, like I said, get those blinders off, because you never know. The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Certain things might start presenting into your world or your environment that, it just seemed awkward that they keep popping up. But like I said, if you've got those blinders on, you might not be apt to see them. Let's take the visual representational image here. You had a pig and a raccoon and some awkward plumbing. Hey, you don't know, maybe you might start to see some giant concrete cisterns that are popping up in the street there. A lot of construction that you wouldn't normally see, or at least you haven't seen when you've been down that area before. I don't know, or wild animals just popping up, crossing your path. I would take note of such things. That said, it doesn't have to necessarily be concrete, tangible such things. It might just be images of as much, to say something on a bus bench as an advertisement, maybe a mural on the side of a building, maybe something just hanging out in a storefront window. You never know, so just be on the lookout. That said, you got that in your mind there to look out for such things. Stay eagle-eyed. Get your dice roll going. Get a directional value time limit set, and then head on out. And maybe this first leg you don't see anything, don't get dissuaded, all right? Just kind of stop, compose yourself, look around. You might just so happen to notice something small, like the street you're on is, there you go, 9th Street or 54th Ave. You never know. I would say take that as a sign you're on the right path. But even if that doesn't present, just keep going with things, all right? Maybe at the end of this next time value, what's this? Maybe the old number 9 bus pulls up. I would take that as a sign, right? Hey, maybe it even happens to have a raccoon in an advertisement on the side. So I know you probably don't like to ride the bus much, but hey, you know what? Maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket. And in a day and age when folks don't tend to carry around coins, I would say there you go, there's another sign. So maybe get on the bus, maybe roll your dice immediately to find out how long to stay on that thing. But what's this? Let's say you roll a 9 again, right? And you're like, all right, 9 minutes. And then no sooner do you look up, hey, maybe you notice that somebody's wearing a sports jersey with the number 9 on it. Or, like I said, the 54. I would say there's your sign. There's who to follow. And maybe get off when they get off the bus. That said, sometimes this kind of thing can happen out in the wild, like you're not seeing anything in particular. Maybe you got to look for something anomalous, and that could be something anomalous. Somebody with a sports jersey and the 54 on it. Or maybe it's just like a hot pink color when everybody else is wearing otherwise blasé such things. Kind of think of it like a white rabbit to chase. Roll yourself a time value and see how long to follow them for. See where they lead you, what path they might take you down. Or maybe they have a raccoon on their shirt. Could be something like that. That said, if you don't have enough of a buffer and then maybe they notice that you're kind of following them, well, you know what? In such instances, just be open, transparent about what you're doing. Show them your dice. Show them this video. It's my birthday. I want to get out there, shake things up. And you just so happen to stand out in the crowd. So I rolled the dice to see where you might be going. And they might say, that's just crazy. And you're like, yeah, I know. I apologize. I didn't want to come off stalkerish, but this is just part of the program. And they go, yeah, that part's crazy too. But what's more crazy is it's my birthday too. That's right. Those are just some of the things that could very well happen. I know it sounds outlandish, but you know what? That's the point. Getting out there and stacking up synchronicities, trying to compound some coincidences, if you like, and see, taste, touch, smell, maybe hear, intuit, just a little bit of the magic. And you know what? You're going to understand why I brought it up. So yeah, get out there. Try to let the universe show you it's with you on your path, all right? That's kind of synchronicity in a nutshell. Let's get on with the read. Your month is February. Your day is the 19th. Your sign is 29 degrees Aquarius to 1 degree Pisces of the Aquarius-Pisces cusp period specifically. And your quality and elements is fixed air. All right, February 19th, the day of the explorer. The tough and determined individuals born on February 19 must fearlessly explore their environment and ultimately follow their inquisitive instincts to far-off worlds. Most born on this day generally overcome their childhood sensitivities early and develop quickly into solid individuals capable of handling the stresses of everyday life. And although they can show an interest in mystical realms, February 19th people are usually practical enough to keep their feet on the ground and simply observe. Their more fanciful side can manifest in a love of travel, adventure, and romance. And the crucial point here is the challenge of pursuing goals, which are distant and difficult to attain. February 19th people like to break new ground with their efforts. Giving their own personal stamp to ideas and activities appeals to them greatly. And their drive toward success is quite healthy and vital. They must, however, beware of growing insensitive or callous from years of overcoming resistance and knocking down barriers. Preserving their inner sensitivity is crucial and indeed possible, but only when they allow it into their profession and make it part of what they do and who they are. And those born on this day who believe that their work life and personal life are somehow two unrelated and distinct entities with no bearing on each other may be deluding themselves. And although February 19th people do best on their own, they make good team players and are a good measure of their success, a good measure of their success is due to their perceptiveness and awareness of who they are working with, and particularly in the area of sizing up strengths and weaknesses and recognizing potential. And February 19th people often have marked leadership abilities, though they are rarely have the desire to be in charge. Others generally respect them for their talents and see them as steady, reliable, and stable. However, when February 19th people feel the impulse to move or make a major change, they must be free to follow their instincts. And those who follow them must be prepared for anything. And those born on February 19th are generally not the most nurturing of people. One way to develop this side of their character is to spend time with children, not necessarily their own, the book says. In addition, social activities of all kinds can keep them in touch with the concerns and needs of others. Ultimately, however, February 19th people need to go off and do their own thing. Most often, their goals are not those of society at all, but pertain to self-development and matters of honor. And when these impulsive, spontaneous people hear the call, they cannot help but follow it. Because they are so often driven to be reckless, they must avoid self-destructive activities. And although we are prone to be our own worst enemy from time to time, those born on this day are more prone than most. All right, quite the interesting birthday breakdown for a whole host and variety of reasons that we'll get into here shortly. But let me tell you something. This was a markedly different day, like I said, for a whole host of our reasons. So let's kind of get into a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of a commentary I like to provide on the day, if you like, and maybe just get in some particulars, some things I not only found of note, but maybe make some connections with days previous and maybe the period at large. So let's get into it here. February 19, the day of the explorer. You're tough and determined individuals who must fearlessly explore their environments and follow their instincts to far-off worlds, the reading says. And this may be one of the best uses of the visual representational image that I've seen, all things considered. To say you're tough and determined individuals who must fearlessly explore your environments. The pig and the raccoon going through the plumbing there. That's right. They're usually pretty determined to root through things, I would say. But the reading claims you may be someone who has had to overcome childhood sensitivities early, and as a result develop into solid, committed individuals capable of handling the stresses of everyday life. To that end, I would say everyday stresses are probably an understatement of what you are capable of and what you can handle. First and foremost, this developing a toughness or an armor, if you like, but being a sensitive individual in the bargain, and to include this childhood facet of having to develop through as much, has been something of a notable Aquarius Pisces cusp through line, I would say. One chief difference is this interest in mystical realms, but also able to keep your feet on the ground. Usually this doesn't come up. It's either or, I would say. Such things then manifesting into a love of travel for you, they said, as well as adventure and romance. And this is interesting in that it's rather anomalous for reasons that we'll get to shortly. But this is very dynamic with regard to chasing down difficult and distant goals that allows you to not only break new grounds, like they said, but to put your own unique stamp on things that is said to essentially speak to what sounds like a life purpose, I would say. But in doing so, you must be mindful of not letting the very act of overcoming such obstacles affect your sensitivities. It's a fascinating idea, I would argue, insofar as this usually comes up on account of people becoming cynical or jaded with life because it's so difficult. But here it sounds like you must avoid becoming accustomed to it. And I would say that's a chief difference and something that hasn't come up before. So the reading advises you allow your sensitivities to cross the barrier between your personal and your work life and to blur any kind of perceived division therein. At least that's the way I read it. And then it goes on to relate some very interesting vacillating dynamics to say you have distinct leadership qualities, but you may be lacking a desire to take charge of things. You make good team players, but you're better off on your own. Not being the most nurturing of individuals, but social encounters keep you in touch with the needs of others. And being seen as reliable and stable, but needing to be able to follow your instincts, all right, or be spontaneous if you like. Another through line this period, considering you're also said to be impulsive. But those are just a few of the intriguing things that they bring up and aspects that come into the end to culminate the breakdown there. Before a warning, of self-destruction and being what they call your own worst enemy, which is interesting because having said that, self-destruction is a bit of a through line for this period. But being your own worst enemy, that's something I think has been the first mention. And if it's been mentioned before, it was only once or twice. But so long ago, I can't even remember when. So be advised of as much, all right? It may apply to you more than most. So, in any event, that's what I'd say about your breakdowns. So let's dive in with your numbers and your planets and get into some of the things that I said are particular this day. Might be the reason why. All right, the number one, okay? Those born on the 19th of the month are ruled by the number one, as 1 plus 9 equals 10 and 1 plus 0 equals 1, and by the sun. And those ruled by the number one like to be first. And they tend to be ambitious and dislike restraint. And because February 19 people are born on the Aquarius Pisces cusp, they are also ruled by both Uranus and Neptune. Consequently, they are often interested in telepathic, mystical, and religious phenomena. All right. Rather sparse numbers in planets entry. I would say it was somewhat personalized for you, but in this particular period here, they've been keeping these things rather sparse, not saying much of anything. I would say it's probably because of the dynamic that's imparted by Neptune and Uranus from the cusp period itself. And let me get into the reasons why here. They just keep adding fuel to the fire. I got to come up with the reasons why for you here. So the number one in the sun for a tendency toward being ambitious, disliking restraints, and an interest or an intrinsic desire, rather, to be first in one's endeavors. Typical sun trait there. But everything else, they just is totally new that they mentioned. So I say that before I get into why. Sun-ruled days, interestingly, at least as far as the book is concerned, well, they tend to have a hyper focus on the one particular theme or personal trait that they mention, and then they expand on that subject and kind of they speak to how your life kind of fulfills that role. But they don't necessarily get into the weeds about like who you are, what your personality is. They more so just kind of focus on how you fulfill this role in a variety of ways, and then expand to that point specifically. And I would say that they don't really do that here. So they're breaking with tradition on these sun-ruled days. So insofar as the birthday breakdown is concerned, Aquarius birthdays also have a tendency to lean towards, or at least the way they've been writing them, they lean towards the theme of the day, and they kind of write in a style that evokes that theme. At least that's how I've been seeing. That seems to be something I've been picking up on. So with regard to conveying all that, I would say they don't really go down the path of hyper-focusing on your day-to-day. And with regard to the writing style, to say the day of the cool quip, or February 14th, it was rather a concise and contained day. It kind of spoke to the day of the cool quip, the way they wrote it. Today, I would say this is one of the first sun rule days, like I said, where they didn't hyper-focus on it. But then they went and they realized, almost in an ironic way, they explored the day, I would say, compared to any other sun rule day. And they explored it with the writing. So they don't, like I said, they don't usually do this on a sun ruled day. So it would seem they bucked a trend, but on the other side of that argument, they might not have bucked a trend because then they went and kind of wrote to the theme of the day, explored it, if you like. So hopefully that makes some sense. But Uranus, as we come into the cusp facet here with the numbers and planets, is an explosive and erratic planet. And it also imparts themes of rebellion and idiosyncrasies. And it's also said to shake up and electrify any given planet that it's coupled to or co-rules with. So it might be shaking up the dynamics that go with the sun-ruled day. Now that's coupled also to Neptune because of the Aquarius Pisces cusp, and Neptune is said to be a dreamy, watery planet that rules visions and ideas. So it's also said to dissolve barriers of more absolute and rigid natures from people and have a magnetic nature to itself to draw people in. So All that said, such elements may speak to the breakdown in no small part, and may explain this anomalous tendency toward travel, change, and adventure. And I mention this because this doesn't typically come up with a sun-ruled day. That usually presents with a Mercury-ruled day. And that's not here. That doesn't rule you in any part at all. So it's interesting that these dynamics come up, and that's why I say it's rather anomalous for you to have that trait or be drawn to as much. So some definitely weird dynamics are afoot here for sure. And I think it's been writ large for this particular period where things just aren't they aren't following typical convention. So that's kind of what you get with the co-rulerships there from a cusp period. But with Uranus in the mix, it's really shaking things up and changing the dynamics. Any event, hopefully that imparted a little bit more, something for you to consider, something more of value. Like I said, they really didn't put much into this particular entry, and there was so much to speak on to, and I don't know why they haven't been doing it in this period. They've been doing as much, keeping them really short and contained when they've got so much they could elaborate on. And I'm not an expert on astrology by any stretch of the imagination. I just kind of go by what they put in the book and the common denominators I've been kind of figuring out on my own as we go day to day. So that's kind of what I think about all of it for you. Hopefully it speaks to you, like I said, provides a little bit more value there. But let's move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. Sometimes we can make more connotations, make more connections with the breakdown. Sometimes not, but hey, let's see what they give us and see if we can do as much as we dive in here. The 19th card of the major arcana is the Sun. There we go. 2 suns. It happens on occasion. And it can be considered as the most favorable card of all the major arcana cards. And it symbolizes knowledge, vitality, and good fortune, and promises esteem and reward. And this card posits attributes of clarity, harmony, or at least harmony in a relationship, and fine reputation. It does, however, also indicate negative qualities of pride, vanity, and pretentiousness. All right. Rather sparse entry here also, but sometimes that happens with these later cards that only present once in a while, or once a month usually. That having been said, you got the most favorable card in the deck, apparently, the Sun. So it's for knowledge, vitality, good fortune, reward, etc. A lot of positives in there. But negatives of vanity and pretentiousness. All right. All told, it's rather hard not to make something fit the breakdown, considering how many traits that were mentioned just here in this small little piece of information they put in there with the card. But I got the general idea most of, if not all, your accomplishments in life come from striving after intentionally difficult pursuits, all right? And such high aims, even if you fall short from them, I would say they must realize in no uncertain amount of positive gains, or the capacity to attract as much in the bargain. Of course, especially if they're harder pursuits or goals that you're out there to put a unique stamp on, I would say you're apt to run across things that, come into balance or harmony. I think the difficult aspect of all this, though, may be in seeing them for what they are, positives, right? Because they weren't necessarily something you were looking for. But hey, you know what? We just have to kind of adjust our focus, our perspective, and like I said at the top, get those blinders off, all right? So it sounds like you've got all the chance to have positives come into your life, especially if you're chasing after those harder things. Just be making sure that you're open to them, all right? Even if the goals you're striving after don't come your way, and that was your original intent. So in any event, that's been your tarot, so let's move on to your health. All right, your health. Those born on February 19 tend to be accident prone and must be careful of injuries to their legs, feet, as well as toes. They also may have various circulatory troubles. Sufficient fluid intake is a key to their health, and a regular consumption of at least a quart of fresh water per day is recommended. That's a lot, it sounds like. Because of their penchant for physical activity, they generally get plenty of exercise, and this only needs to be channeled properly to ensure their continued vigor and good health. As far as diet is concerned, those born in this day are usually free-spirited and tend to eat what they want, when they please as well. It is suggested, however, that they focus more on nutrition, make certain that they are getting necessary vitamins and minerals, as well as being careful not to consume an overabundance of meat. February 19 people must make a conscious effort to get enough rest, particularly at times of stress. All right. Pretty unique health entry. They really personalized it for you. These tend to be pretty personalized, but a lot of times too, they'll just copy paste in different elements to kind of build the thing up. Let's get into it here. Says you might be accident prone, all right? And I would say that's probably on account of the adventure that you're out there seeking, as that's a very common thing that pops up for people that are chasing after adventure. Mercury individuals tend to be careful with things, especially your bones and such. They mention for you legs, feet, and toes, and those are body areas for not just Aquarius, but also Pisces. So that's probably why they put that into the mix. Aquarius being the lower legs and ankles specifically, and again for Pisces, the feet and toes. What else do they have to say? They bring up water consumption, at least a quart a day. That's not a normal recommendation, so maybe take note. And it just occurred to me as I was reading it, it might be on account of the lymphatic system being a Pisces body area. But yeah, the water thing has maybe only come up once or twice before. So again, not common. They said properly channel your exercise for vigor, and I'd say that's a new mention. I don't think properly channeling as much has come up before. But this freewheeling diet, that's somewhat common for the Aquarius period. Absence of, or an abundance rather, of vitamins and minerals. I would say that's for your broken bones there, if you're out there getting into some trouble, some adventure if you like. That often comes up with other days that concern the skeleton, which is an Aquarius body area, but I would say it's so closely related to it's a Capricorn rather body area, but it's so closely related to a lot of the bleed through that comes over into Aquarius with the lower legs and ankles that, hey, you know what, that must be part and parcel with the bargain too, I would say. They said to get plenty of rest during times of stress, which is rather uncommon. They don't mention this very often. When rest does come up, it's usually associated with a Neptune day, and it's usually for the purpose of getting plenty of dream time. But you've got Neptune in the cusp period there, so I would say take that under advisement for those purposes as well. And it says you like the mystical realms and the like, so there you go. Get your dream time, I would say. Having said that, that's your health. What else was there to say? They didn't mention any foods in particular for you. And Aquarius, this has been a bit of a through line. There's a few times they mentioned not getting meat in your diet, or taking meat out, if you like. I think they said that here. And mostly I would say that's on account of heart health, because that's about the only time it comes up in Aquarius. Capricorn, they brought it up to remove animal fats and dairy fats, so as to keep your veins clear. I would say that's a good recommendation too. And as far as the dairy is concerned, we're getting into Pisces with the lymphatic system being a body area. You got to keep that mucus flowing, and milk in the dairy tends to build that up. So I've seen it recommended to avoid as much or cut some of it out. So in any event, there's maybe some diet recommendations for you. I don't know why they didn't include as much, but again, that's been a bit of a through line with the Aquarius period. So in any event, maybe, or hopefully you took some value out of that. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here you go. Cultivate patience and learn to observe without doing. Trying hard is not always the best way. Sometimes let things come to you without pursuing them, and be open to varying experience. All right, quick, fast, down and dirty with the advice here. What did I have to say about what they had to say? All right, bear with me. I got a lot to impart here, and my writing is rather tiny. I had to put it in a book here for you. They said cultivate patience and observe without doing. You can take breaks sometimes, I would say, all right? You don't always have to be moving and grooving. Chasing things down that are difficult. So also a bit of a disconnect, because they said you are individuals capable of staying grounded and observing things. So I don't know, are they just trying to reiterate that that's something you should be doing because you're apt to do it? Who's to say? So perhaps this is a reiteration of some important facet or point. They also said trying hard is not always the best way. Perhaps again emphasizing the point, it may affect your inherent sensitivities, sensibilities as well. Let things come to you, they said. Aside from from the surprise of not having to pursue things, you may come off as a little too eager if you're always chasing things down, I would say. And that might not be a good thing or even a good look. So yeah, maybe cultivate a little bit of cool there. Let things come to you. Though that might be hard if you're always chasing things down and it's really part of who you are. So maybe it's just a good exercise to change that up once in a while. See what happens. And you know what? You may start to have to cultivate a little bit of patience, which I would say is good also. But yeah, you never know what might happen for you. And they tend to drill down on things that are contrary to your strengths to help you ostensibly build up things you're otherwise a little more atrophied with. So there you go. What else do they say? Be open to varying experience. They conveyed a fair amount of activities and recommendations to round you out in the breakdown. And proclivities, if you like. But I'd say this sounds like further endorsement of trying to do as much. Get after those things that you might not otherwise like to do. But if you're an explorer, I would assume you have that well in hand, right? So a little bit of a disconnect, it would sound like. At least in some regards. Or maybe they're just further endorsing that you keep exploring things, maybe even the things you may not necessarily want to. But if that speaks to, hopefully that speaks to you. I know it's a little bit of a disconnect. It might be a disconnect to me. Maybe it isn't to you. So that's what's important here. If it speaks to you, that's what's important. All right. Just surprising advice, I would say, because it all kind of seems part and parcel for who you are. Things you already know ostensibly. So I was a little bit surprised with this advice. Also kind of anomalous. A lot of the advice in this period has been following a similar tack. I'm thinking to myself, this is stuff they should already know, things that have already been gone over, or stuff that doesn't necessarily speak to the day also. And usually the advice is so valuable. It's so succinct and so profound usually, and helps endorse the things we've gone over. And I would say to some extent, this period has been seeing things that I can't quite wrap my head around why they would put it in there. This somewhat here nor there, or not here nor there, but I would say the first two things I would say were perfect. The next two just seemed rather, I don't know, like you've already got that stuff going on for you. Why are they recommending it again? Anyway, I think you get the point. So that's been the advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a bit of a meditation. All right. I'm starting to get redundant just like they are. Here we go. It has been said that discretion is the better part of valor. All right, I don't know what to think about this one, but once more, it has been said that discretion is the better part of valor. All right, your birthday, your meditation, I'm not going to try to throw some interpretation on as much for you. Probably wouldn't help you insofar as what a meditation is for. That said, I don't have an interpretation for it. This one's kind of stumping me, but I would say that's great. If it's stumping you too, that's what it's for. It's for you to meditate on. So in any event, your meditation having been relayed, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth and where you otherwise a little more atrophied, if you like. All right, your strengths, you're daring, you're imaginative, and you're forceful. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that would be a strength, if you like. But here nor there. Your weaknesses. Let's get into your weaknesses. All right, what do we got here? You're rash, you're hardened, and you're uncontrolled, it says. Interesting. That must be the impulsiveness that kind of comes into the bargain. All right. A lot of times I like to argue that our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses if there's something that we need to improve upon. But I also like to say in some cases our weaknesses can also be strengths. It just depends on the situation. There was some time back, impulsive came up as a strength, and then the very next day it traded to being a weakness. And so to me, I was like, what's the disconnect? Such a proximal day. They can be two different things. I think it just depends on the individual. but like I said, also the situation. So if being rash, hardened, and uncontrolled is something you want to improve upon, I would argue being daring, imaginative, and forceful is going to help you do that. If you're forceful, well, hey, maybe you're just going to force through and power through these particular rash, hardened, and uncontrolled issues. I need to get controlled. Hey, I'm just going to force my way through it. You're daring and imaginative. Hey, you're going to rise to the occasion to do the things that need to be done, and in an imaginative way maybe people hadn't thought of doing. But that being said, your weaknesses, what's the case to be made for them being strengths? Being rash and hardened. Sometimes we need to be stubborn about things. Like say I like to mention this, when you're in the boardroom, you got to get through a negotiation. You're not going to cave on this. And if you don't want to do the thing, all right, well then go away. I'll find somebody else who will. Sometimes taking that tact, they may have to go, okay, well, we really want this project. I guess we'll compromise to that end. Being rash, I can see how that's a weakness. That's a bit of a rash decision. Maybe they will walk away and you don't find somebody after. Hey, you know what? You gotta be daring. That's one of your strengths, right? Uncontrolled, sometimes there's certain situations where you gotta be random and rash and uncontrolled. I can't really think of one right now, but hey, maybe in the boardroom, all right? You just gotta be measured or know when to be daring. The situation is going to dictate when to pull out those things you're strong or you're weak with, I would say. But in any event, those have been your strengths and your weaknesses. I also like to say don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether if there's something you think you need to improve upon, because they make you part of who you are, all right? So that said, your strengths and weaknesses having been relayed, let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is take this as an opportunity to maybe examine figuring out our passions. Because all too often I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and a lot of times they don't. And I think it's perfectly understandable. A lot of times we get right out of school, right into a job to make ends meet, maybe the first one that comes along. And at the very root of it, the fatal flaw is that it has nothing to do with what we even like to do, let alone what our passion is. And to figure out a passion, a lot of times it takes work and time and dedication to figure those things out. How do I make what I like to do work for me in some way? Or how do I put my unique stamp on it, if you like? Well, hey, you know what? It's difficult to figure those things out sometimes. And so I think if you aren't chasing after a passion, well, if there's anything I can hope for you on your birthday, it's that you start carving out time to figure those things out. Because we should be jumping out of bed doing backflips in the morning to get into our day, doing something fulfilling, I would say. And so I think this is the perfect opportunity to examine such things in such a way. Maybe we can take some inspiration. I know it's a big-ass tall order to do as much, but hey, you know what? You never know what you might hear that might get the fires crackling there, if you like. So let's get into it, shall we? We have Nicholas Copernicus, the 15th, 16th century Polish astronomer. So he advanced the revolutionary theory that the Earth and other planets revolve around the sun. We also have Sven Hedin, Swedish 19th, 20th century Central Asia explorer, writer of The Silk Road, also 30 books, led expeditions to Persia, Turkestan, Tibet, China, and Mongolia. We also have Andre Breton, French surrealist, a poet, writer, and he wrote Manifesto of Surrealism. We also have Eddie Arcaro, a legendary jockey, it says, 2-time Triple Crown, 5-time Kentucky Derby, also 6-time Preakness, and 6-time Belmont winner. Amy Tan, a novelist of the Joy Luck Club. Smokey Robinson, the singer-songwriter of Smokey Robinson and the Miracles fame. Lee Marvin, the film actor. We also have Brad Steiger, psychic researcher and a writer, and responsible for a work by the name of The Hypnotist. We also have Carson McCullers, a novelist of The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. We also have John Frankenheimer, a stage and film director of The Manchurian Candidate fame. We also have Margot Hemingway, a film actress and a model. Stan Kenton, a jazz composer, arranger, pianist, and a band leader. We also have David Murray, a jazz tenor saxophonist and a composer. We also have Istvan Savabo, a Hungarian film director of Manifesto. Prince Andrew, the British royal family, Royal Naval Officer, and brother to Charles, it says. We also have Gabriel Munter, a German painter and founding member of Der Blau Reiter, Reiter writer. We also have Merle Oberon, a Tasmanian-born film actress, and Joseph P. Kerwin, U.S. astronaut, Luigi Bocciolini, perhaps, Italian composer, and Justine Bateman, a comic TV actress of Saturday Night Live fame, it says. And I know I butchered a few names in there for sure. So it's not done in malice. It's just we got to make up for it on our side of things. I butchering the company logo there. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics isn't the best tool to pronounce some of these names sometimes. But that having been said, hopefully you can take some inspiration from there. I know, like I said, it's a big-ass tall order, but anything we can do to start getting you thinking in that line of thought there. It also said that, I don't know, there's a general consensus that you have those things figured out already based on the breakdown. So if you don't, hey, you know what? Hopefully me putting the bug in your ear about as much will help you start stirring up those fires and start putting in the time and the work required to start figuring out a passion, all right? But if you do already have that figured out, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. That having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Aquarius, of the Aquarius Pisces cusp period specifically, and your quality and elements is fixed air. And this has been February 19th, the day of the Explorer, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. Right above, a little personal message I put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents there if you like, so check that out if you're interested. But this thing makes an excellent coffee table book. If you're ever in the position of having to, I don't know, host a party, that's how this thing came into my orbit. Somebody read my birthday for me on the book, pulled it off the shelf, and I was like, that doesn't speak to me at all. And then they said, oh, it totally does. And they gave me the arguments for as much. And I go, you know what? I think you're right. They had to change my perspective by framing it in a different sort of way. That having been said, here nor there, like I said, maybe you can do the same for some other folks and just get the party started for better or for worse. Because maybe they don't like what they heard. Who's to say? That having been said, book having been relayed, I just want to say, you know what? I hope you had a happy birthday, or you have a happy birthday there too. That's what's important around here. But for everybody else who joined us today, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourselves and you join us for your birthday. All right. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you for the pleasure of your time, and it's been a privilege to share your birthday with you. All right. And lest I forget before I take us out, your daily numbers. That's right. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. All right. Stack up some coincidences, compound some synchronicities if you like, and just, see, taste, touch, smell a little bit of that magic, I hope. And if you do, you understand why I brought it up. But once again, I just want to say happy birthday and take care of yourselves. All right. Get out there, have some adventures, put your unique stamp on things, and keep exploring. All right. Take care of yourselves.